This is the Project Management Podcast. We bring project management topics to beginners and experts. Find us on the web at www.thepmpodcast.com or send your emails to pmpodcast@gmail.com.
Hello and welcome to episode number 108. I am Cornelius Fichtner. This is the Project Management Podcast for the 8th of November 2008. Nice to have you with us. Has your project ever been audited, and was it a good experience, or would you much rather spend, say, about 2 hours at the dentist instead? We met up with Elizabeth Heron. She is the author of the book Project Management in the Real World and has a blog called A Girl's Guide to Project Management. I met her at the PMI Global Congress in Denver last month, and we discussed not project audits, but its cousin, peer reviews. We define what a peer review is and how it compares to a formal project audit. We shine a light on the fact that peer reviews will help you as a project manager to keep honest on your projects. In particular, during the more, hectic times of a project when it's easy to say that, I just don't have time to do these risk management meetings this week. And of course, we also look at how you should prepare for a peer review, both from the perspective of someone who is giving and from the perspective of someone who is receiving such a review. This episode is sponsored by the Boeing Company. The Boeing Company is currently seeking experienced integrated schedulers, from developing complex project plans to mapping a path to the completion of each task. You'll integrate each step towards final assembly and delivery of Boeing aircraft, helicopters, and satellites. You will also lead the integration of intricate project plans and conduct compliance reviews. You should be familiar with Milestone Professional, Microsoft Project, and or CSPR3 for plan development. Boeing is an equal opportunity employer supporting diversity in the workplace. Learn more at boeing.com/careers. Oh yes, and before I forget, a few episodes back I spoke about the fact that I will be hosting the PMO Symposium from December 8th to 10th in Coconut Grove. Well, I'm still doing that, and there are still open seats, so if you are interested in PMOs and you'd like to get together with me, I'll definitely bring my recording equipment, then stop by at thepmpodcast.com and look in today's helpful resources, where I have put a link to the PMO Symposium. And if you mention that you heard about this through the PM podcast, then you will receive a 20% discount. And now I have another gizmo for you. I recently came across a new website called PM Opinions, and I was wondering what it was all about. So here is the CEO of the company to tell us all about it. His name is Cornelius Fichtner. Hello, Cornelius, and thank you very much for being on the podcast.
Thank you, Cornelius. It's a pleasure to be here.
So I came across your new website, PM Opinions. What is it all about?
When I started the Project Management Podcast about 3 years ago, almost immediately people started writing to me and asking questions like, what is the best project management book for a beginner? Or what's the best project management portfolio software? Or the best PMP preparation tool? And I have to admit, I just didn't know. I'm only one person. But I soon realized that the community of project managers at large, they know. They have used these books, used these tools, and used these softwares. So I decided to build a website where project managers could come and write and read reviews on these tools and services and products.
Ah, I see. So it's project managers helping other project managers. How does it work?
Oh, it's quite a simple process. And most of you listeners will probably be familiar with Amazon.com. And when you look at a book on Amazon.com, you can scroll down, and at the bottom, you see all these reviews from other people who have read this book. Well, it's the same idea at PM Opinions. Currently, we have about 500 project management products and services and books and training tools and you name it in our directory. And people can simply stop by, create their own personal account, and then write a short review for these individual products, and at the same time also give them a rating between 1 star and 5 star, of course with 5 star being the best.
Who did you create PM Opinions for?
I created it for 3 groups of people. First of all, there's the project manager who needs to buy something, like a book or a piece of software or a tool or whatever it may be that he or she needs. So they can stop by at PM Opinions and search our directory for products of that group or for a specific product, and then read what other project managers around the world had to say about this particular product. And of course, the second group of people would be those project managers from around the world. You know, we've all used software, tools, training materials. We've read books on project management. We've visited blogs and read ideas on blogs. And we probably have an opinion about these items that we've seen. So you can stop by at PM Opinions and write a review about these in order to help other project managers understand whether or not these are any good. And the third and last group are the manufacturers, the producers of these items, because this site will do 2 things for them. It will either support them if they get really good reviews from project managers, or it will give them sort of a signal if everyone says, no, this is just a 1 star and it's really bad and I didn't like it. So it helps everyone. It helps us project managers understand what products other people think are good, and it helps the manufacturers understand whether or not they meet the criteria, the needs of the customer.
A minute ago you mentioned that you had to create an account on the website. Why do you need an account on the website?
We want to make sure that all the reviews that we get are from real project managers and not just from people, spamming the directory. Unfortunately, that happens way too often these days. So we decided that if you want to write a review, then you have to create an account on the website that can be verified through an email address. If you simply want to read reviews and read up about a product, then you can just stop by and read. So it's open, it's public, it's free. There is no need for you to create an account simply if you want to stop by and read up on a product.
What are some of the other features that the site offers?
So we've already talked about the fact that you can write reviews and rate products, but what about if the product isn't in the directory yet? No problem. If you have an account, you can also add new products into the directory. That helps 2 people. That helps the project manager who's used this product and would like to give a review, so you can just, create a listing in the directory. Or if you are the manufacturer of a product and you would like this product to be listed, you can stop by, create your user account, and then add the product into our directory. And lastly, if you are the manufacturer of a product and then you stop by and you see, oh, my product is here, and oh, the description isn't all that great, I'd like to change the description, you can claim your own product and become the owner of the product. And it opens up a whole new series of benefits that you have. For instance, every time a user reviews your product, you as the owner, you'll get an email sent to you so that you can see these reviews, you can respond to these reviews. But the primary function really is project managers writing reviews for other project managers.
Excellent. That sounds like a website that will help everyone. So here's the most important question, of course. Where can people find it?
Oh, I try to keep that as simple as possible. PM Opinions can be found at www.pmopinions.com.
Great. Cornelius, thank you very much for coming on the program and presenting PM Opinions to us.
Oh, it's been a pleasure, Cornelius, and I'll be sure to stop by at PM Opinions myself and write an excellent review about the Project Management Podcast.
and here is our Gizmos disclaimer. We do not endorse the gizmos that we present in this segment. We just want to tell you that they exist. Please use your own judgment. The companies and individuals who are presenting a gizmo here do not pay us for the privilege of doing so. And now let's move on to our main topic, the discussion with Elizabeth Herrin on peer reviews. Elizabeth is the author of the book Project Management in the Real World. I met her at the PMI Global Congress in Denver last week, and she mentioned on an aside that according to the publisher, her book is the most stolen book of that particular publisher. While this is sad, I also think it's absolutely funny. So expect to hear more of Elizabeth here on the program, in particularly about this book that is the most stolen book. For now, let me introduce you to Elizabeth. This is a somewhat older bio of hers, but I decided to use it because it is so charming. Elizabeth Herrin has spent her career to date working on projects of one type or another. She worked for the global financial services company AXA as a senior project manager and was also with American Express. Elizabeth is a Prince 2 practitioner and is trained in the Six Sigma process improvement methodology as a black belt. An alumnus of the University of York and Roehampton, she is a member of BCS and the BCS Project Management Specialist Group. Elizabeth also writes a Girl's Guide to Project Management, an irreverent project management blog. She currently lives and works in Paris, where small courtyards make it difficult to pursue her hobby of growing vegetables. And since this was written, Elizabeth has already moved back to London. So enjoy the interview.
The Project Management Podcasts feature interview. Today with Elizabeth Herrin, author of Project Management in the Real World.
Fellow project managers, we're coming to you again live from the PMI Global Congress, or as live as this can be on a podcast, from the PMI Global Congress 2008 here in Denver, Colorado. With me is Elizabeth Herrin. She is the author of A Girl's Guide to Project Management. Hi, Elizabeth.
Hello, Cornelius.
And thank you very much for sticking with me, because I have to tell you, dear listener, we've just been talking for about, 10 minutes, 12 minutes or so?
About that, yes.
Yeah, and then I realized, oops, I forgot to press record. So I'm now going to make a quick check here. Yes, we are now officially recording, Elizabeth.
Good.
So, welcome once again, and thank you very much for your time here.
We
want to talk about peer reviews on projects. First question, of course, has to be, what is a peer review?
Well, a peer review is where you take the opportunity to take some time out from your normal schedule and have a review of what you're doing on your project. So you could think of it as a little less formal than a full project audit, more as a friendly pair of eyes giving you a second opinion, looking at the things that you've done just to make sure, are you on track? Are there things that you've missed where you could be doing things differently?
Why should you be doing that? I mean,
Because
you've alluded to it a little bit right there. But
yeah, well, I think it's easy for, well, I can talk from experience. When you get deep into a project and you're managing it on a day-to-day basis, it's sometimes difficult to take a step back and say, actually, am I doing this right? Because it's quite easy to say, oh, well, we haven't got time to have our risk management meeting this month, so I'll just cancel it. And having somebody actually sit down and say, when was the last time you reviewed all of your risks, forces you to assess whether or not you are completing all those steps in the process that you know that you should do, but perhaps for one reason or another because you're so in the detail that you haven't had the opportunity to raise up and just take that moment to look more widely across what you're doing.
Mm. And when should you be doing these reviews?
Well, you've got to be a bit pragmatic about it. There's no real point in doing a review on a project that's so short that by the time you've prepared for the review and then got some feedback from the reviewer, the project's over. But on any significant piece of work, you could look at having a review after every significant milestone, or maybe at the end of a phase. If you wait till the very end, it becomes a lessons learned exercise where you look at what you've done, but you don't really have the opportunity to make immediate changes and learn from the recommendations.
I suppose the idea is also if you do it on the milestones, you can improve.
Exactly,
you can change things, you can change direction and improve that way.
And it can help you catch things before you get too far off course.
Yeah, things. That leads to another question. What things are we talking about here? Are we talking about the output, the deliverables of the project? Are we looking at this area when it comes to peer reviews? Or are we looking at the process side? So how did you manage the project?
I think it's a bit of both, but mainly probably on the how did you manage the project side. Because as a reviewer, you would look at examples of documentation or minutes from meetings, things that, the output of a risk log or the quality. You won't necessarily know the content of the actual project, so that you won't be able to comment intelligently on whether or not they are using the right technology solution to develop whatever it is that they're trying to do. As an example, one of the presentations here at the Congress yesterday was about Hurricane Katrina and the hurricane defence system that's been put in place. And all of the civil engineering plans, as a result of that for the system, are being peer-reviewed by various different civil engineering organisations and agencies. So they're reviewing, are these plans fit for purpose, rather than is this the right approach for our government to be taking.
Right, and they're doing this
your
before they're being used, obviously.
Yes.
Yeah, good idea. Very good idea. Who should be looking at this? Right now we've seen the peers are the other agencies that are looking at these plans, but on my particular project, who should look at it? Obviously, it's because it is a peer review, a peer, which means another project manager, but what kind of qualifications does this person need?
Well, I think you need to ask somebody whose opinion you respect, because if they come back to you with some recommendations and then you say, well, you don't know what you're talking about, you've got to be able to believe that they're going to tell you something useful and respect what they have to say. So you're looking for somebody with characteristics of honesty and integrity, and someone who's not going to come back to you and say, oh, Cornelia, you're doing the best project ever, because that really doesn't help you work out where your weaknesses are.
Well, it pats me nicely on the back.
Yes, I suppose that's an advantage. But from a point of view of sort of skill set, you don't want to ask a very junior project manager to give you advice if you know that you've got a weakness in the area of risk management, for example, and you want some advanced risk management coaching, if you don't think that they're going to be the right person to give that to you. So you might find another project manager in your department, or your someone from the programme office might be a better person to ask.
Mm-hmm. You suggested this topic today because I know that you've been involved in peer reviews yourself.
Yes.
On which side have you been involved in? Have you been the reviewee or the reviewer?
I've done both, actually.
Okay.
It's quite interesting to be reviewed. It's quite daunting. But if it's at your request, then you know that you're going to get something out of it, and it isn't like an audit. It's much more friendly. You don't spend a lot of time trying to justify what you've done. It's much more around, okay, maybe we made a mistake on this, or maybe we haven't spent enough time focusing on that. Thanks for telling me. Now I can get on and do it. But because I was so down in the detail and just trying to make sure that the team knew what they were doing every day and ticking off my tasks, I missed that myself, and I couldn't see it without having somebody point it out to me.
Mm-hmm. Now, what we want to do in the next step is we want to take this into the practice.
Yes.
We want to look at what a project manager should do. He's been asked by a colleague of his, a peer of his or hers, would you please come to my project and do a review? So, where do I start? I've just had the phone call, I put the phone down, I'm like, oh, that's very nice of them that they asked me to do this. I'm flattered. So, what do I do next?
Okay, well, you should be flattered, because someone obviously respects your opinion enough to ask you to help them out, which is a good thing. But you need to start doing some preparation, gather some background on their project, have a look at their project initiation document or the charter or their project brief, whatever they call it, and look at their schedule, their plan. Have they got a Gantt chart? Are they following it? If they're doing earned value management, have they got the documentation that relates to that?
So you're pretty much saying look at whether they're following our methodology.
Yes.
Okay.
And then look at some of the things like their risks and issues log. How long have risks and issues been open? Are they doing actually anything to mitigate it? Are they taking minutes of meetings and then following up on actions? And so you can apply your project management expertise to look at things like scheduling conflicts and scope creep. Are they over-resourced in particular areas, or are they over-reliant on certain resources in other areas? And because you're impartial, you can perhaps look at those things and notice where perhaps other people who are in the project might go, yeah, but that's fine, I know I can work that weekend, it's going to be okay. But to have somebody actually say, well, you really do have a scheduling conflict there, or you've got all of your eggs in one basket, what happens if? Because that if isn't on your risk log, so you should be mitigating against that. Does that make sense?
It does. So there's a lot of critical thinking that has to go into this. You're acting as an auditor, but
yes.
You don't have the authority of an auditor.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, yes, ladies and gentlemen, let's listen to what he has to say.
The PMI bookstore, located in the back of the 700 aisle, will be closing promptly at 3 p.m. when the exhibit show floor closes. Again, the PMI bookstore, located at the back of the 700
Good that he's telling us, isn't it?
Yes.
Closing promptly at
Everything's
3
closing
p.m.
promptly at 3 o'clock.
When the back
Thank you. That's
of the
good.
exhibit floor closes.
Okay.
Thank you.
So where were we? Oh yes, critical thinking, right? So
Yes.
it takes a lot of critical thinking from the part of the reviewer, going through these documents and just taking them in and let them run through your head and go, oh, wait a minute, this is interesting.
What if?
Yeah, what if?
But you don't have to do just documents. You could spend some time talking to the team.
But
I would say you balance that. Don't spend so much time, because they are project team members working on the project, supposed to be working towards completing deliverables.
Yes.
Not spending time navel gazing, looking over documentation with you. So don't take up too much of their time. You can review the material yourself and then use time with the team to ask them questions about what things you found.
Mm-hmm. How about adding it into the project schedule,
I think
project
that's an
budget,
excellent idea.
before you even start?
I think if you can schedule it in, that's excellent.
Mm-hmm.
Because it means that if you know that somebody's going to review you later on, you're also probably more focused on being able to produce a quality output for that review, and you'll be prepared for it at the time. And you won't be in a situation where you go, we're approaching a crisis, I don't really know what to do, I could do with somebody giving me a bit of guidance around what's went wrong because I can't work it out myself. Reviewer, come and help. At that point, you're probably a bit too late.
Yes.
Because you're already, you know that you're not doing quite the right thing, but you can't put your finger on it, and maybe an external pair of eyes will help, but you haven't really used the opportunity to you're in crisis management mode at that point, rather than let's do continuous process improvement.
From your experience, how much effort is involved in doing an in-depth peer review?
Not that much, because I think what you're looking for is stuff that you would be looking for in your own work anyway. So you're tuned into all of this. You're just, if you were looking at it in your own project, you might not see it, but because it's somebody else's project, it'll probably stick out like a sore thumb, because it's what good project management is all about. So I don't think it's actually an awful lot of effort. I think what you do have to be aware of, though, is think what it's like on the other side, and when you go back with your recommendations, you want to present them in a sensitive way. And I would say report back promptly, be confidential with your findings. If you then get permission to share them more widely, then that's great, especially if there are things other people can learn from.
How did you report back? PowerPoint, in writing,
No.
email?
I did
person?
I don't know how many pages it worked out to be, but a couple of pages of Word, and then had a meeting with the project manager in a separate meeting room, rather than in the canteen or somewhere public.
So
I said,
you can't be overheard, or you don't get background noise like we are getting here. Big announcements about the bookstore closing, yes?
Yes. And I found that the feedback was very well received, because they've asked you to come and do this piece of work for them, and you're not telling them things that they probably don't already know, but they just need a little bit of help in making it real, clarifying exactly what they could be doing better.
Yeah. How was it for you, sitting there and the reviewer at the other end of the table is telling you, okay, this is what you did well, and this is what you didn't do so well. Oh, excuse me, this is where you could improve, right? A better way of putting it.
It's quite daunting, actually, because they've been rooting around in your documents, and they've been speaking to members of the team, and I spent some time with the reviewer as well, and said, this is where I think we're going. And then all of a sudden they come back to you with this sort of memo thing. But it is helpful, because to have somebody say, gosh, you've got this issue that's been on your log for 6 weeks, what are you doing about it? And I go, oh, well, just pushed it to the back of my mind. Has it really been 6 weeks? And to have somebody actually say, well, yes, it has. And the less you do about it, the worse it's going to get. Right, okay, I know that I need to move that up my to-do list. And it's probably something that I had in the back of my mind and I know I needed to do something about, but actually having someone really say, I'm pulling you up on this, it helps you clarify that is a priority, or more of a priority now perhaps than it was 6 weeks ago when somebody first raised it with you.
Yeah. In the companies where you've worked, where peer reviews were done, obviously this is part of the culture. Was this something that was required of you as a project manager? Or was this something more that was done on a, well, I help you, you help me basis?
It wasn't required, but it was widely done. And our programme office, although we didn't really call them that, but they supported the endeavours and were happy to facilitate meetings and do that kind of stuff. So, yes, I think it was in the culture that was expected, that you would help out your fellow project manager and you would get the same service back.
What should a project manager do? People who are listening to this and they say, great idea, but guess what? It's not supported here in our company. This is just not something that's ever been done.
Well, why does it need to be supported in the company? If you must have colleagues in the department who you would trust enough to ask, and if you're not going to take up too much of their time, even if you did a little mini review and you decided to focus on one area rather than the entirety of the project and say, actually, today I need another person to help me out with my budget. I know that I'm looking like I'm not going to be in tolerance in a couple of months' time. So if I'm going to go out of my tolerance zone, what do you think I should be doing about it? Because I have played with the numbers in Excel and I can't make it add up. So you could actually take a specific thing and say, right, focus on budget. Let's just do that and knock it out in a couple of hours. So if you've got somebody that you can talk to, a programme office manager or another colleague, or even it doesn't necessarily have to be a project manager, if it's something that specific, you could say, I'll get a finance analyst or somebody I know who has a different set of skills to me but that's complementary, and draw them in. And then if it does become something that your company wants to adopt, all well and good.
Did your company have some sort of a process behind all of this? Did you have a checklist that you were following, or were you really just doing this? Every project manager was doing it in their own way?
No, I think we did have a checklist, I think there was a...
because I think that would help a lot.
Would.
I mean, it is a mini audit, right? And auditors always come to you with a humongous list of items. This is what we're going to check. This is what we're going to test, right? And these are the reasons why we're testing this, even that. So I would say these peer reviews, even though they're friendly, there should still be some process and some guidance around this for the person who's doing it and the person who's receiving the review, so that you don't get blindsided. Absolutely,
and that would make it a lot easier to be able to say, right, today we're focusing on, even if you just look at different sections in a checklist, or we're doing the whole checklist, and it gives you a little bit of structure to be able to say, right, I've completed this now, I've looked at everything that we consider between the two of us to be critical, because you can sit down with the person whose project you're reviewing before you start and say, right, what are the objectives? Why are you asking me to do this? What things do you want me to look at specifically? And brainstorm a few ideas. And that could become the basis of your checklist of, we're going to look at this, and this will be the agreed output, and I will give it to you. You want it in PowerPoint? No problem, I'll do it in PowerPoint. And then you've got some kind of statement of work, if you like, for what the agreement is between the two of you.
Yes. It has pros and cons, I just realised. Because on the pro side, I would say, it gives you a process to follow, quite clearly. And was it Mark Mullally, who yesterday said, as soon as you start setting up metrics are good, because just by setting them up, you are going to ensure that these metrics are going to be followed, and that you're actually going to make sure that you have information about those metrics. So if you have this process set up, that's going to say your budget is going to be peer reviewed, well, you're probably going to focus a little bit more on the budget. That's on the positive side, I would say. It improves the quality of your work because you know it's going to be measured, even if it's just by a peer.
Yes.
On the negative side, however, guess what? The requirements are missing on the checklist. Therefore, I don't really have to worry about the requirements because no one's going to review this. So there is room for fudging the system.
Yes.
Because you focus on the stuff that you're going to be tested on, and you're not focusing on the items that you're not going to be tested on.
Well, I think that's
Reviewed on, excuse me.
Yes, I think that's why if you end up setting some parameters with the project manager in advance, you then end up creating your own checklist rather than using a departmental standard checklist, which could not be relevant for every situation. But you're right, I mean, there is a risk. But then as the reviewer, and you could say, right, where's your requirements document? Why are you doing what it is that you're doing? And how can we then make sure that when you come to test it, you're going to test against the requirements that you initially specified, and there is nothing, then that's a big flaw. And it's your role and duty, if you like, there to point it out.
Absolutely. When it comes to the feedback, I'd like to go back to that meeting that you had in the room. How did you approach it from your point of view? Did you do the old sandwich method? Start out with something positive, then put the negative into the middle and the positive at the end again?
Yes.
Or did you just throw it all out there? How
I
did you give
structured
your
it
feedback?
by area. So we looked at risks, plans, budget, scope, really. And to be honest, while you do have to give some degree of positive feedback, it's nice for people to know what they're doing right. The benefit really is in the recommendations that you can put forward to how they do things differently. So I think there's something to be said for being very honest in your feedback, but also to be very practical. So to give examples, there's no point in me saying, oh, you really need to do more risk management, Cornelius. What does that actually mean? That's not going to help you at all. But if you can say, the way that you're tackling this is you're not looking at risk prioritization, for example, you're just looking at likelihood rather than some other factor that perhaps your company says is relevant. You can edit that bit out. But if you can give tangible examples, then that's much more helpful. So when I've given feedback, I've focused really on the facts, what has actually happened or what is happening, rather than how you feel about what's happening. You see what I mean? Rather than say,
yes,
it looks like you're doing a fabulous job. That's a nice pat on the back, but actually not very much help. Whereas you've got a great process for managing the stakeholders. Maybe that's something we should share with other people. Could we talk about that a bit more? That's something that is a very positive thing that you could take away and disseminate around the rest of the department if you manage to identify areas of good practice. And similarly with areas where you can put forward recommendations, if you're recommending based on tangible examples, it's a lot easier for the other person to accept the feedback.
Wonderful. Examples. Are you willing to share an example with us of something that came up during one of your reviews that was either very positive from your point of view, that you got, oh, wow, I didn't think I was that good, or something that you'd say, yes, should have been better on that?
I lost quite a lot of money once on an Excel spreadsheet, and I was tracking project budget, and my formulas were rubbish, and I was merrily tracking away, and then actually when we came to look at how much we'd actually spent based on data out of the finance department against what my Excel spreadsheet was tracking, I was way out, and actually we were overspending, which was very bad. But it was great that somebody actually picked that up and said, I don't do this now. I've learned a lot about how Excel works and how budgets are constructed, and I'm much better at it now. But actually that experience made me a lot better at it, because somebody actually took the time to say, we're doing this review, we've looked at the paperwork, oops. No blame culture. I was very lucky to be working in an organisation that was incredibly supportive, and I sat down with a senior project manager who was excellent, very numerate. She was married to a banker, so I expect that probably helped. And we talked it through, we corrected the spreadsheet, I knew what I needed to do from then on. No problem. Well, a bit of a problem, but at least we picked it up early enough for it not to be a huge crisis.
Yeah, so benefit for you as the reviewee, quite clearly. There was an error, there was a mistake, you were able to correct it and bring the project back under control, hopefully, at some point. And you're no longer doing this. Let's turn this around. Because they often say that the mentor learns more than the mentee. So in this case, does the reviewer learn more than the reviewee sometimes? What's your experience here?
I think You can, because if you're talking to people and you discover something that they're doing that is either a good thing or a not so good thing, you can take that and apply that to your project, or you can say, oh, they're making that mistake. Perhaps that's something that our project management methodology doesn't really make us look at in enough detail. I'll go and check that in my project as well. Or you can say, wow, this is a great way of, I don't know, I can't think of a good thing now. It's a great way of training new starters when they come, and that's something that I've picked up, not necessarily through peer reviews, but from induction of people on projects, where I've seen other project managers and how they welcome a new team member on board. And they've got, this particular person had a checklist of these are the things that I need to tell my new team members about my project, and that's something I do now, or I try to do, to be able to onboard new people.
So it's not just a peer review, it also facilitates sharing of best practices.
Exactly. Everyone's a winner.
Everyone's a winner. Great. Elizabeth, thank you very much for your time today. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
And that was Elizabeth Herrin on Project Peer Reviews. Let me once again repeat the title of her book. It is Project Management in the Real World. And please, don't steal it. Buy it. And you can find a link to buy it on the pmpodcast.com under the helpful resources of today's episode, which is, of course, number 108. That's it for today. Thank you very much for listening. And if you like our podcast, why not forward it to friends, co-workers, project management colleagues, or anyone else who might enjoy it. As always, you can find us on the web at thepmpodcast.com. If you are a project manager who wants to become a PMP, then the easiest way is to do it with our sister podcast, the PM Prepcast, and study for the exam by listening to over 90 podcast episodes from pmprepcast.com. And if you are already a PMP, then you need PDUs. At pmlectures.com, we go beyond just delivering PDUs. We give you exclusive training from the brightest minds in project management today. Please send your emails to pmpodcast@gmail.com, and when you write, you know what to do, right? Please tell me where in the world you are writing from. And finally, we have this. A project management law that you can use both during an audit or a peer review. Good project management is not so much knowing what to do and when to do it, as knowing what excuses to give and when to give them. Until next time.